He was trembling on that train station platform at 3 a.m, alone and desperate, when he found her. He offered his jacket, a simple act of kindness that should have meant nothing. But the moment his skin touched hers, both their fates shattered. Because he wasn't just a stranger. He was something far more dangerous. A creature born of angels and demons, sent with one singular mission: to collect her soul in 30 days. Her father had sold it years ago in a desperate bargain to save her life, never knowing the contract's true cost. Now the debt has come due, and the man assigned to kill her can feel her heartbeat as if it were his own. They have 1 month before the collection is complete. 1 month to find a way to break an unbreakable contract. 1 month before he's forced to end her life with his own hands. A death that will destroy them both, because something neither of them planned for has ignited between them. A bond so powerful it rewrites the laws of heaven and hell. A bond that means if she dies, he dies with her. And his demonic father will do anything to make sure that happens. But here's what no one expected. She's not the helpless victim they thought she was. The tattoos she's carried since she was 21, symbols she believed were just art, are actually an ancient binding created by her grandmother, a woman who loved a creature exactly like him and lost everything. Those symbols recognize him. They're awakening something inside her, something that shouldn't exist. And when 6 angelic hunters break down their door with blades designed to erase souls from existence, they'll discover that the girl marked for death has become the one thing more dangerous than a Nephilim. His equal, his mate, his reason to burn the world down. The only question left is whether love can survive when the price of staying together is becoming the most hunted fugitives in creation. Or if 30 days is all they'll ever have. The fluorescent lights of the train station flickered at 3:47 in the morning, casting sickly yellow shadows across Marina's face as she pulled her threadbare jacket tighter. The cold seeped through denim worn thin from too many washes, through skin, straight into bone. She'd been shaking for the past 20 minutes, though she couldn't tell anymore if it was from the February chill or from the fact that she'd just worked 16 hours straight and her body had simply forgotten how to be still. The platform was empty, except for her and the distant sound of something dripping. Water, probably. Or maybe her sanity, finally leaking out after 3 months of sleeping 4 hours a night, of eating ramen for breakfast and skipping lunch, of watching the numbers in her bank account shrink like her father's body had shrunk in that hospital bed. She pressed her palms against her eyes. Don't think about him. Don't think about how he'd squeezed her hand at the end and whispered, "I fixed it, baby girl. You're safe. Now." Don't think about how those were his last words, delivered with a smile that looked almost peaceful, almost relieved. What had he fixed? The cancer had killed him anyway. The debt was still there, crushing her. $147,000 that grew every month like some kind of malignant thing. Marina's phone buzzed. Another notification. Another payment missed. She didn't look. Instead, she stared at the tattoo on her left forearm, the one she'd gotten on her 21st. Birthday with money she definitely shouldn't have spent. Geometric patterns that the artist had copied exactly from her grandmother's journal. Symbols that felt right in a way she couldn't explain. Her abuela had filled notebooks with these designs before dementia took her, muttering in Portuguese about protection and old promises. Marina had thought they were just pretty. Now she traced them with one finger, the black ink stark against her brown skin, and wondered why they sometimes seemed to pulse with warmth when everything else was cold. "You're going to freeze to death out here." The voice came from behind her, low and rough like gravel underfoot. Marina spun, heart hammering, her hand instinctively going to the pocket knife she kept in her jacket. Stupid, probably, bringing a 3-inch blade to whatever kind of fight the world wanted to throw at her. But it was something. The man standing 6 feet away raised both hands slowly, palms out. Easy. Not trying to scare you. But he did scare her. Not because he looked threatening exactly, though he was tall, maybe 6'2", with shoulders that suggested he could break her in half without much effort. Not because of the dark clothes that blended too well with the shadows, or the way he'd appeared without a sound. It was his eyes. They were red, not bloodshot, not the pink of someone who'd been crying or the irritation of too many late nights. Actually, genuinely red, like embers banked in a fireplace, like the warning light on a machine that's about to explode. Marina blinked hard. Exhaustion. Had to be. 16-hour shifts did things to your brain, made you see things that weren't there. When she opened her eyes again, his eyes were normal. Brown. Dark brown. Almost black. She'd imagined it. The last train already left, he continued, voice careful, measured. Next one's not for another hour and 20 minutes, and it's 18 degrees out here. I'm fine, Marina said automatically, the lie, bitter on her tongue. She wasn't fine. Hadn't been fine since her father's diagnosis 2 years ago. Definitely wasn't fine now, standing in a train station at almost 4 a.m. because she'd missed the last bus and couldn't afford an Uber. The man didn't move closer, but he also didn't leave. He just stood there, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle, like he was memorizing her face, like he was deciding something. Finally, he shrugged off his jacket. It was black. Leather, worn soft with age, probably cost more than she made in a month. He held it out. Marina stared at it. I don't need... You're shaking so hard I can hear your teeth chattering from here, he interrupted. Take the jacket. I don't know you. True. He took a single step forward, slow, telegraphed, still holding out the jacket. But you're going to know me, whether you want to or not. Something in the way he said it made her stomach drop. Not a threat, exactly. More like a prophecy. Like he knew something she didn't. Something terrible and inevitable. She should walk away. Should go inside the station where there were cameras and a bored security guard, and at least the illusion of safety. Should definitely not take clothing from a strange man at 4 a.m. who appeared out of nowhere with eyes that definitely, absolutely had been red, even if they weren't anymore. But she was so cold. Marina reached out and took the jacket. The leather was warm, impossibly warm, like it had been sitting in front of a heater for hours, instead of on the body of a man who'd been standing in 18-degree weather. She pulled it on, and immediately felt the shaking start to subside. It smelled like smoke, and something sharper, something that reminded her of the ozone scent before a thunderstorm, and underneath that, something that made her think of her grandmother's journal, of ink and old paper, and secrets written in languages she didn't understand. Thank you, she managed. The man nodded once. He was watching her again, that strange intensity back in his expression. In the stuttering fluorescent light, she could see his face more clearly now. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that looked like it had been carved from stone, dark hair that fell just past his collar. Handsome, objectively, in the way that dangerous things are often beautiful. What's your name? He asked. She shouldn't answer. Stranger danger and all that, the lessons drilled into her head since childhood. But the words came out anyway, pulled from her like he'd reached in and plucked them from her throat. Marina. He closed his eyes briefly, like her name had caused him physical pain. When he opened them again, they were definitely brown, warm, and almost kind, and she wondered again if she'd imagined that red glow. Marina, he repeated, tasting the syllables. Of course it is. What's that supposed to mean? It means... He stopped, jaw clenching. A muscle jumped in his cheek. It means I really wish we'd met under different circumstances. What circumstances? Any other ones. He took a breath, and when he spoke again, his voice had changed, gone flat and cold, and absolutely devoid of emotion. I'm Samael, and I'm sorry, Marina. I really am. But I have 30 days to collect your soul. Your father sold it. He sold you. The platform tilted. Or maybe Marina did. She couldn't tell. Couldn't think. Couldn't breathe past the sudden crushing weight in her chest. What? 4 years ago, Samael continued, each word precise as a scalpel cut. Your father made a contract with a demon. He was desperate. You were sick, some kind of infection the doctors couldn't figure out. He begged for your life. The contract was specific. Your health, your safety, in exchange for... No. Marina's voice cracked. No, that's insane. You're insane. You got better overnight. The doctors called it a miracle. His eyes, those terrible, beautiful eyes, never left hers. It wasn't. She remembered. Of course she remembered. 13 years old, fever of 106, her organs starting to shut down one by one. They'd been preparing her parents for the worst. And then, between one breath and the next, the fever had broken. Just like that. Gone. The doctors had run every test, found nothing. Sent her home with instructions to rest and follow up in a week. By then, she'd been completely fine. Like it had never happened. Her father had cried for 3 days straight. Happy. Tears, she'd thought. He didn't know, Samael said. And now there was something in his voice. Something that might have been gentleness, if gentleness could coexist with the words he was saying. The contract had fine print. It said you'd be safe from illness, from accidents, from harm, until you turned 25. And then, stop. And then the debt comes due. You turned 25 4 months ago, Marina. I've been watching you since then, waiting for orders. They came through tonight. He paused. I have 30 days to bring your soul to the collection point. If I don't, I'm destroyed. If you run, you're marked and hunted by things much worse than me. If you fight, I said stop. But he didn't stop. He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the way his hands were shaking now too. Close enough that she could see something flicker in his eyes. That red glow, surfacing and submerging like something drowning. I'm sorry, he whispered. God, I'm sorry. But your father's. Love is what's going to kill you. And there's nothing either of us can do about it. Marina ran. She didn't remember dropping the jacket. Didn't remember her legs starting to move. But suddenly she was sprinting across the platform, her boots slapping against concrete, her breath coming in ragged gasps that burned her lungs. The station blurred past her. Yellow lights, peeling paint, graffiti that looked like warnings in languages she didn't speak. Behind her, nothing. No footsteps. No pursuit. Somehow that was worse. She burst through the station doors into the street, into air so cold it felt like swallowing glass. 4:17 in the morning and the city was empty, silent except for the distant wail of a siren and her own panicked breathing. She kept running anyway, down 14th Street, past shuttered shops and sleeping buildings, past her own reflection in dark windows, a woman coming apart at the seams. Your father sold you. No, that was crazy. Demons weren't real. Contracts weren't real. None of this was real. She'd fallen asleep on the platform, and this was a nightmare. Just a nightmare born from exhaustion and grief, and the crushing weight of debt that never stopped growing. Except she could still smell him. Smoke and ozone, and something underneath that made her teeth ache. Could still see those eyes turning red in the fluorescent light. Could still hear the way he'd said, I'm sorry. Like it meant something. Like it cost him something. Marina's apartment was 12 blocks away. She made it in 8 minutes, fumbling with keys that kept slipping through her shaking fingers, finally getting the door open and slamming it behind her. She threw the deadbolt, the chain, then stood there breathing hard, back pressed against the door, waiting for... What? What was she waiting for? The apartment was exactly as she'd left it 16 hours ago. Tiny studio, Murphy bed folded into the wall, kitchenette with a hot plate and a mini fridge that hummed. Too loud. Laundry draped over the single chair because she couldn't afford the laundromat. Her grandmother's journals stacked in milk crates because she didn't have a bookshelf. A life packed into 200 square feet of failure. Her father had died to give her this, had sold his soul, her soul, so she could survive long enough to live in a shoebox and work herself to death anyway. Marina slid down to the floor, knees pulled to her chest. She should call someone. Should call who? She didn't have friends anymore, not real ones, not after 2 years of canceling plans to sit in hospital rooms. Her mother had left when Marina was 6, disappeared one Tuesday and never came back. No siblings. No family except an aunt in Recife she'd met twice at funerals. She was alone, had been alone, would die alone. 29 days now, technically. It was past midnight. 29 days until... Stop it, she whispered to the empty room. Stop. It's not real. But her hand had already moved to her forearm, fingers tracing the tattoo her grandmother had insisted was protection. The geometric patterns felt warm under her touch, warmer than skin should be, and for just a second she could have sworn they pulsed with light. Marina yanked her hand away. She was losing it. Completely, finally, losing it. She pulled out her phone with trembling fingers, pulled up her banking app because there was comfort in concrete numbers, in problems that were real and solvable even if she had no idea how to solve them. The balance stared back at her. Negative $237. Overdraft fees stacking up. The hospital bills and collections. The debt that owned her more completely than any demon ever could. Maybe that's what he'd been. Some kind of particularly cruel bill collector, using scare tactics to get her to pay what she didn't have. That made sense. That was logical. Except bill collectors didn't have eyes that burned red. Didn't appear out of nowhere. Didn't know about her childhood illness that had vanished overnight, the miracle the doctors couldn't explain. Marina's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello? Silence. Then breathing, slow and measured. Then his voice, that gravel, rough voice that had offered her a jacket with one breath and a death sentence with the next. You didn't believe me. She should hang up. Should throw the phone across the room. Instead, she pressed it harder against her ear. How did you get this number? Marina, I need you to listen. How did you get my number? Her voice cracked. How do you know where I live? Are you outside right now? Are you watching me? I've been watching you for 4 months, Samael said quietly. Since your birthday. Those were my orders. Observe the target. Wait for collection authorization. I know you work 3 jobs. I know you eat 1 meal a day. I know you haven't slept more than 4 hours straight since your father died. I know... He stopped. I know you visit his grave every Sunday and you talk to him for exactly 23 minutes before you have to leave for your shift at the bar. Marina's blood turned to ice water. She stood up slowly, moved to the window, pulled back the thin curtain. The street below was empty. No one standing in shadows. No eyes glowing red in the darkness. Where are you? That doesn't matter. What matters is that you need to see the contract. You need to understand what you're dealing with. There is no contract. This is... You're just some stalker, some... Your father kept a lockbox, Samael interrupted. Under the floorboards in his bedroom, behind the dresser. You never found it because you couldn't bear to go through his things after he died. It's still there. The phone nearly slipped from Marina's hand. How could he possibly know that? She'd inherited her father's apartment along with his debts, had walked in once after the funeral, seen his reading glasses still on the nightstand, and his coffee mug still, in the sink, and walked right back out. She'd been paying rent on an empty apartment for 4 months, rather than face the work of packing him away. The contract is in that lockbox, Samael continued. So is a letter. He wrote it 3 days before he died. He was trying to find a way out, Marina. He'd figured out what he'd done, what the fine print really meant. He was looking for loopholes, for ways to break it. He didn't find any. You're lying. I wish I was. Something in his voice shifted, went raw. God, I wish I was lying. But I have 29 days to collect you or I'm destroyed. And you have 29 days to accept that your father's love is the thing that's going to kill you. And we're both trapped in this, and He stopped. Marina heard him breathe, heard something that might have been a curse or a prayer. Just look at the contract, he said finally. Then call me back. This number will work. I'm not calling you back. I'm calling the police. They can't help you. No one can. A pause. I'm sorry, Marina. I'm sorrier than you know. But this is real, and it's happening, and running won't change it. He hung up. Marina stood there for 5 full minutes, phone pressed to her ear even though the line was dead, staring at nothing. Then, slowly, she opened her contacts and scrolled to the P's. Police. She should call them. Should report a stalker who knew too much, who said impossible things with a voice that sounded like he meant every word. Her finger hovered over the number. She thought about her father's face in that hospital bed, the way he'd smiled at the end. I fixed it, baby girl. She thought about the lockbox she'd never found, in a hiding place she'd never looked. She thought about eyes that burned red and a jacket that had been impossibly warm, and the way her tattoo had pulsed under her fingers. Marina closed her contacts, opened her rideshare app instead, put in her father's address. The driver would be there in 7 minutes. She grabbed her keys and walked out the door, still wearing yesterday's clothes, still smelling like 16 hours of bar smoke and desperation. If there was a lockbox, she'd find it. If there was a contract, she'd read it. And then she'd prove to herself, once and for all, that Samael was just a stalker, just a liar, just a man, not a demon, not her death, not the price her father's love had bought. The lockbox was exactly where Samael had said it would be. Marina found it at 5:32 in the morning, after prying up 3 floorboards with a screwdriver from her father's toolbox, her hands shaking so badly she'd dropped the screwdriver twice. The box was small, maybe 8 inches by 6, made of dark metal that felt wrong to touch. Too cold, like it had been sitting in a freezer instead of under floorboards in a heated apartment. She carried it to the kitchen table, her father's kitchen table where they'd eaten cereal together on Sunday mornings, where he'd helped her with homework, where he'd told her about the cancer diagnosis while gripping his coffee mug so hard she'd thought it would shatter. The box wasn't locked. The lid opened with a soft click that sounded too loud in the silent apartment. Inside, a single sheet of parchment, yellow with age, covered in text that hurt to look at. Not because the handwriting was bad. It was beautiful, flowing script in deep red ink. But because something about it made her eyes water, made her head throb, made her want to look anywhere else. She forced herself to read. Contract of Soul Exchange, it said at the top. And below that, in smaller letters, binding in perpetuity across all planes of existence. Marina's stomach turned over. The contract was specific, horrifyingly specific. It laid out the terms in language that was simultaneously archaic and crystal clear. 1 soul, female child, age 13, currently dying of septic infection. In exchange, complete healing, immunity to disease and physical harm until the age of 25 years. Payment due 30 days after the 25th birthday. Soul to be collected by designated agent and delivered to the holding pens of the second circle. Her father's signature was at the bottom, shaky but unmistakable. Next to it, another signature in that same red ink, a name she couldn't quite focus on, letters that seemed to shift and rearrange themselves whenever she tried to read them. Below the signatures, in her father's handwriting, much more. Recent, much more desperate. I didn't know. God help me, I didn't know. I thought it meant 25 years of protection. Not until 25. Marina's vision blurred. She realized distantly that she was crying, tears dripping onto the parchment. But they didn't smudge the ink. Nothing smudged it. It was permanent. Eternal. I told you. She spun around so fast her chair toppled backward, crashing to the floor. Samael stood in her father's kitchen, between one blink and the next, like he'd always been there. Like reality had simply rearranged itself to include him. Get out, Marina whispered. Then louder. Get out. I can't. He looked tired, she realized. Not physically. He stood perfectly still, perfectly balanced. But something in his eyes looked exhausted, ancient. The contract binds me too. I'm the designated agent. Until the collection is complete or the 30 days expire, I'm tethered to you. You broke into my father's apartment. No. He gestured around them. You're the one who inherited this place. You have keys. I just walked through a door that was already open. The door wasn't open. Wasn't it? His mouth twisted into something that wasn't quite a smile. Doors are complicated things for people like me. Sometimes they're closed. Sometimes they're not. Depends on what kind of door you're looking at. Marina's hands clenched into fists. Stop talking in riddles. Stop, just stop. If this is real, if any of this is real, then tell me how to break it. You can't. There has to be a way. Contracts can be voided, can't they? Loopholes, technicalities. This isn't a business contract, Marina. This is a soul contract written in the old language, sealed with your father's blood. There are no loopholes. The terms are absolute. Samael moved closer, slow, careful, like he was approaching a wounded animal. Your father spent his last 3 months looking. He consulted priests, mediums, even tried to contact other demons. Nothing worked. The contract is unbreakable. She wanted to scream, wanted to throw something, break something, tear the world apart with her bare hands. Instead, she picked up the parchment again, stared at those shifting signatures. Then what happens? What happens when the 30 days are up? I take you to the collection point. A church, usually. Neutral ground. I perform the extraction ritual. His voice had gone flat again, empty of everything except facts. Your soul is removed from your body. Your body dies. Your soul is transported to the second circle where it's processed. Processed. The word tasted like ash. Sorted, cataloged, assigned to eternal labor or punishment depending on... It doesn't matter. You don't want the details. I'm going to hell. You're going to a holding pen that's hell adjacent, Samael corrected, and there was something bitter in his voice now. Actual hell is for people who earned it. You're just collateral damage in a contract your father didn't. Understand. Marina looked at him, really looked at him. In the growing dawn light filtering through her father's windows, she could see details she'd missed before. The way his pupils weren't quite round, more elongated, almost reptilian. The faint pattern of scars on his hands, geometric and deliberate, like ritual markings. The way the air around him seemed to shimmer sometimes, heat waves rising from asphalt in summer. What are you? She asked. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pulled out the chair she'd knocked over, set it upright, then took the one across from her. Sat down like they were having coffee, like they were friends, like he wasn't her executioner. I'm Nephilim, he said finally. Half angel, half demon. Born from a union that should never have happened between beings that should never have touched. We're mistakes, abominations. Too holy for hell, too tainted for heaven. We exist in the spaces between. And you collect souls for demons. Sometimes. When ordered. I don't have much choice in the matter. His jaw tightened. My demonic father owns part of me. Literally. When he commands, I obey, or I'm destroyed. It's complicated. Marina's hand had drifted to her forearm again, to the tattoo that still felt too warm. Samael's eyes tracked the movement, and something flickered across his face. Recognition. Or maybe fear. Where did you get that? He asked quietly. My grandmother. She drew the designs before dementia took her. Why? May I? He reached across the table slowly, telegraphing every movement. When Marina didn't pull away, his fingers brushed the edge of the tattoo. The world exploded. Not literally, but something detonated inside Marina's chest, a sensation like lightning and honey and knives all at once, racing from the point where his skin touched hers, spreading through her veins, her nerves, every cell of her body lighting up like Christmas and catastrophe. And worse. Oh God, worse. She could feel him. Not his touch. Him. His emotions, sudden and overwhelming, crashing into her like a tidal wave. Fear, guilt, rage. And underneath it all, older than all of it, a loneliness so vast and deep it made her earlier isolation feel like a paper cut. Samael jerked his hand back like he'd been burned, eyes wide, those red embers suddenly blazing in his irises before he slammed them shut. No, he breathed. No, that's not... That can't... What was that? Marina's voice came out strangled, her chest still. Felt like it was on fire, like someone had reached in and rearranged her internal organs. What did you do? I didn't do anything. He stood abruptly, chair scraping against linoleum. Those symbols, they're not just protection. They're your grandmother. Was her name Helena? Helena Carvalho? Yes. How do you... She was the mate of a Nephilim named Raphael. He died 70 years ago, killed by angel hunters because he refused to abandon her. She drew those symbols in her grief, mixed with her blood, created a binding that would carry through her bloodline. Samael's hands were shaking now. Actually shaking. Those marks recognize Nephilim. They form a mate bond. Involuntary, permanent. And I just activated it. Marina stared at him. A what? A soul bond. It means I can feel you now, your emotions, your pain, and it's going to get stronger. He ran both hands through his hair, looking genuinely distressed for the first time since she'd met him. Marina, if this bond fully manifests before the 30 days are up, what? What happens? His eyes met hers, and in them she saw something that looked like desperation. Then when I kill you, it kills me too. Marina didn't leave her father's apartment for 3 days. She called in sick to all 3 jobs, sent texts she knew would probably get her fired, and didn't care. Couldn't care. The world had fractured into something unrecognizable, and she was still trying to find her footing in the wreckage. Samael stayed. Not constantly. He'd disappear for hours at a time, walking through walls or doors or whatever dimensional barriers separated his world from hers. But he always came back, materializing in the living room or the kitchen, bringing food she didn't remember asking for, coffee that was always the right temperature, sandwiches from the deli 2 blocks over, soup that tasted like her grandmother used to make. You need to eat, he'd say, setting containers on the table. The bond is draining you. If you don't maintain your strength, it'll accelerate. She wanted to throw the food in his face, wanted to scream that she didn't want anything from the creature who was going to kill her in... She checked her phone. 26 days now. But her hands would reach for the coffee anyway, her body overriding her brain's protests, because the bond made her aware of him in ways that felt invasive and intimate all at once. She could feel when he was close, even through walls, could sense the roiling conflict. Inside him, the constant war between whatever angelic part of him wanted to find a way out, and the demonic part that insisted the contract was law, unbreakable, absolute. On the 3rd day, Marina finally spoke more than monosyllables. Tell me about Raphael. Samael looked up from where he'd been sitting by the window, watching the street below with the stillness of a predator. The morning light caught the sharp angles of his face, made the red flecks in his eyes more visible. Why? Because my grandmother loved him. Because he died for her. Because these... She touched her tattoo, felt that now familiar pulse of warmth. These symbols were made from her grief. I want to know why. He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he stood, crossed to where she sat at the kitchen table, and lowered himself into the chair across from her. The same chair he'd taken 4 days ago when her life had ended. Raphael was my friend, Samael said finally. One of the only friends I've ever had. We were both outcasts. Nephilim usually are. Too dangerous for human society, too corrupted for angelic orders, too willful for demonic hierarchies. We stuck together, survived together. What was he like? A ghost of a smile crossed Samael's face, there and gone. Stubborn, idealistic. He actually believed we could be more than what we were born to be. That being half angel meant something, that we had choices. The smile faded. He met your grandmother in 1954. She was 18. He was old. We don't age the same way you do. He'd been alive for at least 2 centuries, maybe more. Marina tried to imagine it. Her grandmother, young and vibrant in grainy black and white photographs, falling in love with a creature who shouldn't exist. She knew what he was? Yes. He tried to stay away from her at first. Knew it was dangerous. Knew the angels would see it as corruption, and the demons would see it as weakness. But Helena was... He paused, searching for words. She was fearless. She pursued him, convinced him that love was worth the risk. Was it? For 10 years, maybe. They were happy. They hid well. Raphael taught her protection wards, how to mask her scent from supernatural creatures, how to recognize danger. They talked about having children, about building a life together. His hands clenched on the table. Then the hunters found them. A sect of angels who'd been tracking Raphael for decades, waiting for him to slip up. They attacked. During the day, when Helena was at the market, Raphael fought them off long enough for her to run, to hide. Then they killed him. How? Celestial blade through the heart. It's one of the few things that can actually destroy us permanently. No afterlife, no reincarnation. Just gone. Samael's voice had gone rough. Helena found his body 3 hours later. She was pregnant, 8 weeks. She lost the baby that night from the shock. Marina's throat tightened. She'd known her grandmother had been married once, briefly, before meeting her grandfather. Had known there was some tragedy in her past that no one talked about. But this, the symbols, Samael continued. She drew them in the weeks after, mixed her blood with ink, created a binding meant to protect any children she might have in the future. It was supposed to warn them about Nephilim, keep them safe from creatures like Raphael. Like me. He looked at her, and his eyes were more gold than red now, almost human. Instead, it created the opposite, a recognition marker, a beacon that would activate a mate bond if any Nephilim with compatible resonance touched it. Compatible resonance? It means... He stopped, jaw working. It means Raphael and I were similar. Same frequency, same... You could call it bloodline. Though that's not quite right. We came from the same angelic line, even if our demonic parentage was different. Helena's binding was keyed to that specific resonance. When I touched your tattoo, it recognized me. As what Raphael was to her. Understanding crashed over Marina like cold water. So, this bond, it thinks we're mates. Yes. Samael's hands were shaking again. He pressed them flat against the table, and she could see the scars on his knuckles more clearly now. Ritual marks that looked like they'd been carved deep. It's trying to complete what Helena and Raphael started, create the connection they had. And it doesn't care that I'm here to kill you. It doesn't care about the contract or the laws or the fact that we're enemies. It just bonds. Marina felt it then, that pull in her chest, stronger than it had been 3 days ago. She could sense his conflict like it was her own, could feel the way part of him, The angelic part, she thought, wanted desperately to find a way to save her. And the demonic part, the part bound to his father's will, kept overriding that impulse with cold logic. The contract is absolute. You cannot break it. You can only fulfill it. Can you feel me, too? She asked quietly. Yes. The word came out strained. Your fear, your anger, your... He stopped. Everything. It's getting stronger every day. By the time the 30 days are up, if the bond fully manifests, your death will be mine. Then don't kill me. I don't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. Not me. He stood abruptly, moved to the window again, his back to her. You don't understand. My father owns me. Literally. Part of my soul is bound to him through a contract older than your grandmother's bloodline. When he commands through that binding, my body obeys even if my mind rebels. I've tried to fight it before. It doesn't work. I just do what I'm told. Watch myself do it. Scream internally while my hands carry out orders. That's slavery. That's being Nephilim. His shoulders were rigid. We're born into bondage, Marina. Half our blood belongs to demons who see us as tools. The other half comes from angels who see us as mistakes. We don't get freedom. We don't get choice. We just exist until we're no longer useful. Marina stood, crossed to where he stood. The bond pulled her closer, made it feel natural to stand beside him, even though every logical part of her brain said to keep distance from her executioner. Raphael chose, she said. He chose my grandmother over safety, chose love over survival, and it got him killed. But he chose. She touched his arm, felt that lightning strike connection again, gentler this time, but no less intense. Through it, she felt his emotions spike, longing and terror, and something that felt heartbreakingly like hope. You said he believed you could be more than what you were born to be. Do you believe that? Samael finally looked at her, and his eyes were doing that thing again, shifting from red to gold and back. The war inside him visible in his irises. I want to, he whispered. God help me. I want to. But wanting doesn't change reality. The contract is absolute. The laws are clear. In 26 days, I will take you to a church, perform the extraction ritual, and watch your soul leave your body. And if this bond is fully formed by then, his voice cracked, then I'll die with you. We'll both be collected. 2 souls for the price of 1. Then we have 26 days to find another way. There is no other way. You don't know that. My father looked for 3 months, but he was human. He didn't know your world, didn't have access to whatever resources you have. You said Nephilim are outcasts, but that means there are more of you, right? Others who faced contracts, who found loopholes or... Marina. He turned fully toward her now, and she could see the exhaustion in every line of his face. I've existed for 347 years. I've seen thousands of contracts. I've collected dozens of souls. I've watched people beg and bargain and try every possible way to escape. None of them worked. The contracts always win. Always? Something flickered across his expression. Hesitation. Memory. Almost always, he amended quietly. Marina's heart kicked against her ribs. Almost? Samael closed his eyes. There was one, 50 years ago. A woman sold her daughter's soul. Similar situation to yours. The daughter was resourceful. She found a way to transfer the debt. Transfer it? To who? To herself. Voluntarily. He opened his eyes, and they were pure gold now. No red at all. The contract specified the soul of the daughter as payment. She argued that she was still herself, still the daughter, just older, changed. She performed a ritual that essentially killed her legal identity and reborn her as someone new. Same soul, different person in the eyes of demonic law. Did it work? Technically, yes. The contract was fulfilled. The daughter's soul was collected. because the daughter legally ceased to exist. But the woman who was reborn in her place kept her soul. He paused. The cost was everything else. Memory, mostly. Identity. She didn't remember her mother, her life, anything that made her who she was. She became a blank slate. Marina's breath caught. That's not saving her. That's just a different kind of death. I know. Samael's hand came up, almost touching her face before he caught himself. Pulled back. That's why I said almost. The soul survived, but the person didn't, and even that loophole was closed decades ago. Demonic law adapted. Contracts now specify the soul regardless of legal identity or memory or any other technicality. They stood there in the morning light, close enough that Marina could feel the heat radiating from his skin, could see the way his pulse jumped in his throat. The bond hummed between them, singing in frequencies she felt more than heard. 26 days. Then we find a new loophole, she said. One they haven't closed yet. We find a way. And if we don't? Marina looked at him, at this creature who was supposed to be her death, but who stood here looking at her like she was something precious, something worth saving even if it cost him everything. Then at least we try, she said. At least we don't just accept it. Raphael didn't. My grandmother didn't. Why should we? Samael didn't answer, but his hand moved again, and this time he didn't stop himself. His fingers brushed her cheek, gentle as a prayer, and through the bond she felt it, the way the angelic part of him reached for her, desperate and doomed. So we try, she pressed. Together. You said it yourself. If this bond fully forms, we die together anyway. We've got nothing left to lose. He stared at her for a long moment. Then, finally, something in his expression shifted. Not hope exactly, but maybe the ghost of it. We'll need help, he said quietly. Other Nephilim. Ones who know contract law better than I do. It's dangerous. My father will know if I'm actively trying to break his command. He'll intervene. We'll deal with that when we have to. Marina, you don't understand what you're asking. I understand perfectly. She covered his hand with hers where it still touched her face. I understand that I have 26 days to live unless we do something impossible. I understand that you're going to die too if we don't find a way. And I understand that I'd rather spend those 26 days fighting than waiting to be collected like livestock. Through the bond, she felt something in him break. Or maybe open. The angelic side surging forward, stronger than she'd felt it before, pushing back the demonic commands that said, obey, comply, kill. All right, Samael breathed. All right, we try. The Nephilim they needed to find lived in a place Samael called the Threshold, an abandoned church in Red Hook that existed simultaneously in the human world and somewhere else, somewhere Marina's brain couldn't quite process even when she was looking directly at it. 7 days had passed since she'd agreed to fight. 7 days of research, of Samael teaching her to see the supernatural world that existed beneath the surface of her city, of the bond between them growing stronger until she could feel him even when he was miles away, a constant presence in her chest like a second heartbeat. 23 days left. They took the subway at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. Samael wearing a long coat that hid the way shadows moved independently around him. Marina with her grandmother's journals in her backpack, because Samael said the symbols might matter, might be the key to something they hadn't figured out yet. Tell me about Azrael again, Marina said as the train rocked through darkness. He's old, older than me by at least 5 centuries. He was there when contract law was first written, helped draft some of the original bindings. Samael kept his voice low, even though the subway car was empty, except for a man sleeping 3 seats down. If anyone knows a loophole, it's him. And he'll help us because he hates the system almost as much as we do. Samael's jaw tightened. He was forced to execute a child once. 6 years old, sold by her mother for 3 years of beauty. The contract was legal, binding, absolute. He had to collect. It broke something in him. He's been in self-imposed exile ever since, but he still studies contract law obsessively, looking for ways to dismantle it from the inside. Marina's stomach turned. A 6-year-old. What kind of world allowed that? Your world, she thought bitterly. You just didn't know it. Existed. The church appeared between one blink and the next. They'd been walking down a street lined with warehouses, and then suddenly, there it was. Gothic architecture that shouldn't exist in this neighborhood. Stone walls covered in ivy that moved too deliberately to be stirred by wind. Stained glass windows that showed images that changed when you looked away. "Stay close," Samael said, his hand finding hers. The contact sent that familiar electricity up her arm, but it was comforting now, instead of alarming. She'd gotten used to the bond, to the way it let her feel his vigilance, his protective instinct that fought constantly with his demonic programming. The church doors opened before they reached them, swinging inward on hinges that didn't creak despite looking centuries old. Inside, the air smelled like incense and something older, something that made Marina think of her grandmother's journals, of ink and blood and desperation. Samael. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, resonant and tired. I wondered when you'd come. The man, creature, Nephilim who stepped from the shadows near the altar, made Samael look young. He was tall, maybe 6'4", with hair that might have been blonde or white or silver, depending on how the light caught it. His eyes were the most unsettling thing Marina had ever seen. One pure white like fresh snow, the other black like a void, both of them swirling with something that looked like distant galaxies. "Azrael," Samael said, and Marina felt respect through the bond, mixed with old affection. "We need your help. I know what you need." Those strange eyes fixed on Marina. The girl with the death sentence and the mate bond you didn't plan for. "I've been watching your struggle, Samael. It's poetic, in a horrifying way." "Can you help us or not?" Marina asked, and was proud that her voice didn't shake. Azrael's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Direct. I like that. Your grandmother was direct. Too. Helena Carvalho. She came to me once, after Raphael died, asked me to kill her so she could be with him." Marina's breath caught. "What did you say?" "I told her that death doesn't work that way for humans loved by Nephilim. That Raphael's soul was gone, truly gone, erased from existence by the celestial blade. That she'd be going to a different place entirely." He moved closer, his footsteps silent on the stone floor. "I told her the best revenge was to live, to create something that would protect her bloodline from creatures like us. So she did. She created you." He reached out, faster than Marina could track, and touched her tattoo through her sleeve. The symbols blazed with light, visible through the fabric, and Marina gasped as sensation flooded through her, not pain, but something overwhelming, like every emotion she'd ever felt compressed into a single moment. Azrael pulled back, eyes widening fractionally. "Fascinating. The binding is stronger than I thought. Helena didn't just create protection. She created a beacon, a trap." He looked at Samael. "You know what this means?" "That I'm fucked," Samael said flatly. "More than that. This bond, it's not random. Helena's ritual was specific. It would only activate for a Nephilim with Raphael's resonance, yes, but also for one who carried the same curse he did." Azrael tilted his head, studying Samael. "You're bound to your father the same way Raphael was bound to his. Same contract structure, same enslavement. The bond. Recognize that. It's trying to complete what Helena started. Not just create a mate bond, but break the demonic binding in the process." Marina's heart hammered. "Break it? The bond can break his father's contract? If it fully manifests, yes. The mate bond supersedes all other bonds. It's one of the oldest laws, written before demons learned to enslave their children. But Azrael's expression turned grave. That's exactly why Samael's father will never let it complete. The moment he realizes what's happening, he'll trigger the collection order early, force Samael to kill you before the bond can solidify. Can he do that? Marina asked. Just change the contract terms? The contract with your father is separate from Samael's binding to his father. Your father's contract says 30 days, but Samael's binding says, obey all commands. If his father orders him to collect you tomorrow, Samael has to comply. The timeline doesn't matter. Through the bond, Marina felt Samael's fear spike. He doesn't know yet about the bond. I've been shielding it, hiding the resonance, but I can't do that forever. How long? Azrael asked. Maybe a week, 2 at most. The bond is getting too strong. He'll sense it soon. Then we have a week to find a solution. Azrael turned, walking toward the altar where books and scrolls lay scattered across surfaces that shouldn't be able to hold physical objects. I've spent 50 years studying contracts. There are 3 ways to break them. The first, fulfill the terms exactly as written, which in your case means death. Not helpful. Not an option, Marina said firmly. The second, find a paradox in the contract itself, something that makes fulfillment impossible. But your father's contract is ironclad. I reviewed it through the resonance when I touched you. No paradoxes. No contradictions. And the third way? Samael asked. Azrael was quiet for a long moment. Then he picked up a scroll, unfurled it, and Marina saw text similar to her father's contract. That same red ink that hurt to look at. That same flowing script. The third way is transference. Not of identity, like that woman 50 years ago. Of the debt itself. The contract specifies your soul as payment, Marina. But it doesn't specify that the debt must be paid by the original debtor. I don't understand. Your father incurred the debt. You're the payment. But debts can be assumed by another party if, and this is critical, if both parties consent completely with full knowledge and without coercion. And if the new debtor has something of equal or greater value to offer. Marina's mind raced. So someone else could take my place? Take on the debt? In theory. In practice, it's almost impossible. First, you'd need someone willing to die for you. Second, they'd need a soul of equal value, which in demonic accounting means a soul with similar potential, similar life force. Third, the transfer would require a ritual that's complicated, painful, and if it fails, both souls are forfeit immediately. I'll do it. Samael's voice was hard, certain. No, Marina said immediately. Absolutely not. I'm already dead if the bond completes and I have to collect you. This way, at least you live. And you die. That's not a solution. That's just changing who gets sacrificed. Marina? No. She turned to face him fully, grabbing his arms. Through the bond, she felt his determination, his willingness to trade his existence for hers without hesitation. We're not doing that. There has to be another way. There might be. Azrael's voice cut through their argument. Both of them turned to look at him. He was holding a different scroll now, this one older, the parchment nearly crumbling. This is theoretical. I've never seen it done. But there's a ritual mentioned in pre-demonic texts from when contracts were first being written. It's called the division of burdens. What does it do? Marina asked. It splits a debt between 2 people. If both consent, if both have compatible resonance, which you do thanks to the mate bond, the debt is divided equally. Neither party dies, but both carry half the burden forever. What burden? Samael asked warily. The contract specifies soul collection. If divided, you'd each lose half your soul to the holding pens. Not enough to kill you, but enough to mark you, change you. You'd be permanently marked as transgressors in demonic law, neither human nor fully supernatural. you'd be hunted by both. Celestial and infernal forces for breaking contract law. You'd never be safe. You'd never be able to stop running. Marina's throat tightened. But we'd be alive? Technically. Though the life you'd have would be difficult, painful, isolated. And the ritual itself. Azrael's dual-colored eyes were somber. It requires both parties to willingly give up part of their soul. The pain is said to be worse than any physical torture. Many who attempt it die from the shock alone. And if you're interrupted during the ritual, if anything goes wrong, both souls are destroyed completely. No afterlife, no second chances. Just erasure. The church fell silent except for the distant sound of wind that came from no direction Marina could identify. 23 days left. Or less, if Samael's father discovered the bond. And this was their option. Split her death sentence. Become permanently marked fugitives. Endure agony that might kill them anyway. All for a chance at a half-life spent. Running. She looked at Samael. Felt through the bond his desperate hope, his willingness to try anything that meant she didn't have to die. Felt also his fear. Not for himself, but for her. Fear that she'd suffer. Fear that it wouldn't work. Fear that he'd lose her anyway. If we do this, Marina said slowly, and we survive, what happens to the mate bond? Azrael's expression shifted. Something almost like sympathy crossing his features. The division ritual would complete it. Finish what? Helena's symbols started. You'd be permanently bound to each other. His emotions, your emotions. You'd feel everything. His pain would be yours. Your death would be his. You'd be one entity in two bodies. Some people consider it a blessing. Others call it a curse. It's a life, Marina said. She turned to Samael. Together. That's what it is. A life together. Through the bond, she felt his resistance crumble. Felt the angelic part of him surge forward with something that felt terrifyingly like love. 23 days, he said quietly. Or less. We'd need to prepare. Learn the ritual. Make sure we do it perfectly. I can teach you, Azrael said. But Samael, your father, I know. Samael's jaw set. I'll keep shielding. Keep him from sensing the bond as long as possible. And when he does find out, we'll already be ready, Marina finished. We do the ritual before he can force you to collect me. It's insane, Samael said. It's hope, Marina countered. He looked at her for a long moment, and she watched his eyes shift. Red to gold to red again, the war inside him playing out in his irises. Then his hand came up, cupping her face, and through the touch the bond sang between them, stronger than ever. Hope, he repeated, and it sounded like a prayer. All right, we try. Azrael nodded slowly. Then we start now. Because Samael, I need to tell you something. The shielding you're doing, I can sense it cracking. Your father will know about the bond within days, not weeks. If we're going to do this, we have maybe 72 hours before he intervenes. 3 days. Marina's hand found Samael's, their fingers interlacing, and through the bond she sent him everything she felt. Fear and determination, and something else. Something that had been growing since that first night in the train station, when he'd offered her his jacket. Then we don't waste time, she said. They had 68 hours when Samael's father found them. Marina was in the church's back room. Azrael called it the sacristy, though it looked more like a library designed by someone who'd gone mad, studying the ritual text for the 14th time. The words were in Latin, Portuguese, and something older that Azrael said predated human language entirely. She'd been memorizing the phonetics, practicing the breathing patterns required to survive the soul-splitting, when Samael suddenly convulsed. He dropped to his knees like someone had cut his strings, a sound tearing from his throat. That was half scream, half growl. His eyes blazed pure red, brighter than she'd ever seen them, and shadows exploded from his body, writhing like living things, like serpents made of darkness. Samael! Marina lunged for him, but Azrael grabbed her arm, yanked her back. Don't touch him. Not when he's being commanded. You'll get pulled into the binding. What's happening to him? His father. Azrael's grip was iron. He's asserting control, forcing the connection. Samael's back arched, head thrown back, tendons standing out in his neck. When he spoke, his voice was wrong, layered, like multiple people talking at once, like something ancient and cruel wearing his vocal cords. You dare shield yourself from me? The words dripped venom. You dare form a mate bond with your target and think I wouldn't notice? Father. Samael's own voice broke through, strangled and desperate. Father, please. Silence. The command hit like a physical blow. Samael's mouth snapped shut, jaw clenched so hard Marina heard teeth crack. You've been compromised. The bond has corrupted you. This is why we don't let our children play with humans, Samael. They make you weak. They make you forget what you are. Through the mate bond, Marina felt everything. The agony of Samael's body being puppeteered against his will. The rage of his demonic blood answering his father's call. The desperate, futile struggle of his angelic half trying to resist. And underneath it all, his terror. Not for himself, but for her. You will collect the girl tonight, his father continued. No more delays, no more compromises. You will take her to the extraction site and complete the contract. And when you're done, you will remain there until I arrive to sever this obscene bond you've allowed to form. No. The word ripped from Samael, his own voice fighting through the possession. No, I won't. You don't have a choice. His father's laugh was acid and broken glass. That's what it means to be mine, boy. Your will is irrelevant. Your feelings are irrelevant. You are a tool, and tools obey. Samael's body stood, movements jerky and wrong, a marionette with tangled strings. His hands flexed, and Marina saw claws extend from his fingertips, black, curved, dripping something that sizzled when it hit the floor. When he turned toward her, his expression was empty, a mask stretched over someone who was screaming internally. Samael, fight it, Marina said, backing up. Her hand found the edge of a table, knocked over a candle. I know you're in there. Fight him. He can't. Azrael had moved between them, his own eyes swirling with that galaxies and void pattern. The binding is absolute. Samael, if you can hear me, you need to remember the breathing pattern, the one from the ritual. It can disrupt. Samael's possessed body moved faster than thought, one clawed hand lashing out. Azrael blocked it, and the impact sent both of them crashing into the wall. Stone cracked. Books tumbled from shelves. Marina scrambled backward, her hip hitting the table where she'd been studying, where the ritual text lay open. The division of burdens. The words swam before her eyes. Both parties must consent. Both must initiate simultaneously. Both must be willing to bear the pain. Marina, run, Azrael shouted, grappling with Samael's possessed form. Get out of the church. The threshold will protect you. He can't cross it while being commanded remotely. You'll have time to— No. Marina's hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. No running. She grabbed the ritual text, scanned the opening passage again. Then she did the stupidest, bravest thing she'd ever done. She walked toward Samael. Marina, don't— Azrael's warning cut off, as Samael's elbow caught him in the jaw, sent him sprawling. Samael's possessed body turned fully toward her now, those red eyes empty of everything except his father's malevolence. His claws were still extended, still dripping that burning substance. His mouth opened, and his father's voice poured out. Convenient. The target comes willingly. This will be easier than I thought. Samael, Marina said quietly. I know you can hear me. I know you're trapped in there, watching this, hating every second. And I know you think this is over, that your father wins. that there's no way out. She took another step closer. But there is. There's always been one. You just have to choose it. The boy can't choose. His father's laugh. Again, cruel and delighted. He's mine. Every cell, every thought, every breath belongs to me. No, Marina said. His soul belongs to him, and half of it belongs to me now, whether you like it or not. She held up her left arm, showed the tattoo that was glowing now, pulsing with light that matched the rhythm of her heartbeat. Helena Carvalho created this binding. She keyed it to Raphael's resonance, to Nephilim who carried the same curse, the same enslavement. It recognizes that curse, and it breaks it. That's what mate bonds do. They supersede all other bonds. Not if the host is dead. Samael's possessed hand shot out, grabbed her throat. The claws pressed against her skin, sharp enough to draw blood. Through the bond, Marina felt Samael's horror, his desperate attempts to stop his own hand from squeezing. Say goodbye to your mate, boy. Watch me kill her with your hands. Let that be the last thing you... Marina grabbed his wrist with both hands, pressed her thumbs directly onto the scars she'd noticed days ago, those ritual marks carved into his skin. And she spoke the first words of the division of burdens ritual. Divido hoc onus, accipio dimedium ponderis, sanguis meus pro sanguine tuo. The effect was immediate. Light exploded from her tattoo, racing up her arm, across her body, pouring into Samael through the point where they touched. His father's presence in him recoiled, and for just a second, one precious, impossible second, Samael's eyes flickered from red to gold. His hand released her throat. Marina, no, Samael gasped, his own voice. You can't. The ritual requires both of us. If you start it alone, you'll... Then finish it with me. She grabbed his face with both hands, forced him to look at her. Say the words, Samael. Choose. You said you wanted to believe you could be more than what you were born to be. Prove it. Choose me. Choose us. Choose freedom even if it costs everything. His father's presence surged back, trying to reclaim control. Samael's body convulsed, shadows and light warring across his skin. His jaw clenched, and Marina felt through the bond his father's commands slamming into him like hammers. Kill her. Obey me. You are mine. You have no will, no choice, no. Divido hoc onus, Samael whispered. His eyes locked onto hers, and they were both colors now. Red and gold swirling together, mixing, creating something new. His hands came up, covered hers where they pressed against his face, and his voice grew stronger. Accipio dimedium ponderis. Tears tracked down his face, but he was smiling, actually smiling. Sanguis meus pro sanguine tuo. The world caught fire. Not literally, but Marina's nervous system didn't know that. Pain exploded through every nerve, every cell, like someone had replaced her blood with molten glass. She heard herself screaming, heard Samael screaming too, their voices twining together as the ritual seized them both. Her soul, she could feel it suddenly, tangibly, began to tear. Not rip violently, but divide methodically, like someone was carefully cutting her in half with surgical precision. Half of her was being pulled toward Samael, toward the mate bond, toward the space where his soul was also dividing, and half of his was coming to her, filling the hollow places inside her chest, settling into the gaps like puzzle pieces that had always been meant to fit together. Through the agony, Marina felt his father's presence shatter, the binding that had held Samael in. Slavery for 347 years fractured, the mate bond superseding it exactly like Azrael had said. She felt Samael's shock, his disbelief that it was actually working, that he was actually free. And then she felt something else, something vast and malevolent, turning its attention toward them like the eye of a hurricane swiveling to focus on an insect. If I cannot have you, a voice boomed. Not through Samael anymore, but through reality itself, shaking the church's, foundations. Then no one will. The air pressure changed. Marina's ears popped. She looked up through tears of pain and saw a crack forming in the air above them, a tear in space itself. And through it, something was coming. Something massive and terrible, wreathed in shadows that had teeth, eyes that burned with the red of dying stars. Samael's father, not remotely possessing his son anymore, but coming here, physically, to destroy them both. Azrael! Samael's voice was ragged. He was on. His knees now, Marina collapsed against him, both of them shaking as the ritual continued to work, continued to split their souls and recombine them. The ritual? How long? 2 more minutes. Azrael was on his feet, hands moving through patterns that left trails of light in the air. I'm holding the threshold, but I can't hold it against him. He's too strong. When he crosses through, you need to be ready to. The crack widened. A hand emerged. If it could be called a hand. It was too large. Too many fingers. Too many joints. Skin like charred leather stretched over bones that shouldn't exist. It gripped the edge of the tear and pulled, widening it further. Marina's vision was graying at the edges. The pain was impossible, beyond anything she'd thought a body could endure. Half her soul was gone now, transferred to Samael. Half of his was settling into her, foreign and familiar all at once. The mate bond was completing, solidifying, and through it she felt his love for her. Desperate, absolute, terrified. And she poured her own back, let him feel that she'd choose this, choose him, choose this agonizing half-life over a normal death every single time. 60 seconds, Azrael said. Just hold on for... The creature pulled itself through. Samael's father in his true form was nothing like his son. Where Samael had human features, his father was purely demonic. 12 feet tall, wrapped in shadows that moved with hungry intelligence. Horns that curved back from a skull that was too elongated, too many teeth in a mouth that opened wider than physics should allow. My son. The voice was thunder and breaking bones. My disappointing, treacherous son. I gave you existence, and this is how you repay me? By breaking our bond for a human? She's not just human. Samael somehow stood, pulling Marina up with him. They leaned on each other, both of them barely able to stand as the ritual entered its final phase. She's my mate, and I'd break 1,000 bonds for her. His father laughed, and the sound shattered 3 of the stained glass windows. How touching, how noble, and how pointless. Because when I kill her, you'll die too. That's what mate bonds mean. So I destroy you both with one blow. The creature raised that massive wrong hand, claws extended, each one longer than Marina's forearm. And through the bond, she felt Samael's acceptance, his peace with this. They'd freed him. They'd chosen each other. If this was the end, at least it was the end they'd picked. Marina closed her eyes, felt the ritual lock into place, the final word still forming on both their lips. Felt their souls finish dividing and recombining, half of each now permanently in the other. Felt the mate bond complete, solid and unbreakable, a connection that transcended everything, including death. And felt something else. Something in her tattoo, in Helena's binding, respond to that completion. Her eyes snapped open. Samael, the symbols. Your grandmother said, what did Azrael say? That they were a trap? Not for demons, Azrael said from somewhere to their left. For exactly this, Marina finished. For a father trying to destroy his son's mate bond. She didn't think, didn't plan, just moved on instinct, on something that came from the half of Samael's soul now living inside her. The half that understood supernatural law in ways her human brain couldn't quite process. Marina threw herself forward, directly into the path of those descending claws. Her left arm extended, the tattoo blazing with light so bright it bleached color from the world. And she spoke words she'd never learned, in a language she'd never studied, words that came from Helena's binding, and Raphael's love, and 70 years of grief weaponized into protection. Non tanges quod meum est, non destrues quod edificavi, non vincis ubi amor vincit. The claws hit the light and stopped. Just stopped, like they'd hit an invisible wall. Samael's father roared, pushed harder, and the light pushed back. Marina felt it draining her, pulling from the well of power that came from the completed mate bond, from Samael's angelic heritage now flowing through her veins. She felt Samael behind her, his hands on her shoulders, feeding his own strength into the binding. "This is impossible," his father snarled. "You're human. You can't—" "I'm not just human anymore," Marina said. Her voice came out layered, dual-toned, her voice and Samael's voice speaking simultaneously. "I'm half Nephilim. Now, half angel, half demon, and entirely done with you." The light from her tattoo exploded outward, a wave of pure force that caught Samael's father in its blast. The creature stumbled backward, roaring, the shadows around him dissipating like smoke. He reached for them again, but the light formed a barrier, solid and impenetrable. "The threshold recognizes the mate bond," Azrael said, wonder in his voice. "It recognizes her as Nephilim now, under the church's protection. He can't touch either of you here." Samael's father raged, his form flickering, destabilizing. "This isn't over. You've made yourself a target, boy. Both of you. Every demon, every angel, every creature that values the old laws will hunt you. You'll never know peace, never know safety. You'll run until you die, and it won't take long." "Maybe," Samael said. He'd moved to stand beside Marina, their hands clasped, the bond singing between them. "But we'll run together, and we'll be free doing it." His father's eyes, all 6 of them, fixed on Marina. "You think you've won? You've sentenced yourself to a half-life. You'll feel every wound he takes, every pain, every moment of suffering. When he's hunted, you'll feel the blade. When he's tortured, you'll scream. Is that really what you want?" Marina met those burning eyes without flinching. "Yes," she said simply. "It is." The creature stared at her for a long moment. Then it laughed, bitter and hateful, and began to fade back through the tear in space. "Then enjoy your prize, boy. Enjoy your freedom. You've traded one binding for another. Let's see which one destroys you first." The tears sealed. The church fell silent except for the sound of Marina and Samael breathing in unison, their hearts beating the same rhythm, their souls forever divided and forever merged. They'd done it. The impossible thing. They'd broken his father's binding, completed the mate bond, survived the division of burdens. They were alive, together, free, and marked for death by every supernatural creature in existence. Marina started laughing. She couldn't help it. The absurdity, the terror, the impossible victory, it all bubbled up and spilled out in laughter that was half sobs. Samael caught her as her knees buckled, held her up, and through the bond, she felt his exhaustion, his disbelief, his overwhelming relief. "We're insane," she managed between gasps. "Completely," he agreed, his forehead pressed against hers. "We just became the most wanted fugitives in the supernatural world. Was it worth it?" Through the bond, she felt his answer before he spoke it, felt the depth of his love, the gratitude that she'd chosen him, the fierce determination to protect her, even though protecting each other was now literally the same thing. "Ask me again when we're not being hunted," he whispered. "I'll ask you every day for the next 1,000 years. "Good, because that's how long I plan to spend with you." They stood there in the ruined church, holding each other, 2 halves of one impossible whole. Outside, dawn was breaking. Inside, their new life, their half-life, their fugitive life, their together life, was just beginning. They came for them on the 3rd day. Marina woke to Samael's hand over her mouth and terror flooding through the mate bond so intense it made her gasp. They'd been sleeping. Actually sleeping. The first real rest in 72 hours. In a motel outside Philadelphia that Azrael had said was warded against tracking. Apparently, the wards weren't enough. "Don't make a sound," Samael breathed against her ear. "There are 6 of them. Angels, hunters, outside the door." Marina's heart hammered, but she nodded, and he removed his hand. Through the bond, she felt his calculations, his assessment of their chances. Not good. 6 trained celestial hunters against 2 exhausted Nephilim, because that's what she was now, technically. Half Nephilim, half human, fully hunted. The motel room was small, dingy, with wallpaper peeling. In the corners and carpet that had seen better decades. One door, one window with bars on it because this was that kind of neighborhood. No exit that wouldn't take them directly into the hunter's path. "They're waiting," Samael said quietly. He'd moved to the window, was peering through a gap in the curtains, building up power for a breach. "They'll come through the door and the walls simultaneously in about..." The wall exploded. Not the door. The wall itself, plaster and drywall erupting inward. In a shower of debris and celestial light so bright Marina had to shield her eyes. 3 figures stepped through, wreathed in that terrible radiance, wings made of something between fire and starlight spreading behind them. The door kicked in at the same moment, 3 more hunters pouring through, and suddenly the tiny room was full of beings that made Samael look almost human by comparison. They were beautiful and terrible, faces too perfect to be real, eyes that held no mercy, no compassion. Only the absolute certainty of their righteousness. "Samael, son of Agares," one of them said, voice resonant as bells. "You are charged with breaking demonic binding, forming an unholy mate bond with a human vessel, and corrupting said vessel into partial Nephilim status. The sentence is execution." "She has a name," Samael said. He'd moved in front of Marina, putting himself between her and the hunters, even though the bond meant any wound to him would hurt her too. "Marina Carvalho. And she's not a vessel. She's condemned." Another hunter, this one female, stepped forward. Her wings flickered, and Marina felt heat radiating from them like standing too close to a furnace. The human chose corruption over purity, accepted demonic essence into her soul. The penalty is purification by fire. Marina's blood ran cold. Through the bond, she felt Samael's rage spike, felt his demonic side surge forward, red flooding into his eyes. "You're not touching her. You don't have a choice." The first hunter raised his hand, and light coalesced into a blade. The same kind of blade that had killed Raphael, Marina realized with horror. Celestial weapon. The kind that destroyed Nephilim permanently. "Submit to judgment, or we'll make this painful." "It's already painful," Samael said. His voice had changed, gone rough and layered, the demonic part of him rising to meet the threat. Shadows pooled around his feet, writhing. "You're threatening my mate. Do you know what that means? To a Nephilim? Do you understand what you've just made me willing to do? We understand you're outnumbered." The female hunter's blade materialized. "We understand you're weakened from the division ritual, and we understand that killing her kills you. So really, we only need to strike once." She lunged. Everything happened too fast. Samael moved to intercept, his own claws extending, shadows solidifying into weapons. But he was still recovering, still exhausted, and there were 6 of them. The female hunter's blade caught him across the ribs, and Marina felt the pain like someone had driven a spike through her own side. She screamed, doubled over, and through the bond felt Samael's anguish, not at his own wound, but at knowing she was feeling it too. 2 more hunters moved toward Marina while Samael was engaged, their blades raised, celestial fire dancing along the edges. One of them smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing Marina had ever seen. perfect beauty utterly devoid of humanity. "This will hurt," the hunter said, "but your suffering will purify the corruption. Be grateful we're merciful enough to make it quick." Marina's hand went to her tattoo instinctively, and the symbols blazed. Not with the protective light from before, but with something else. Something that came from the half of Samael's soul now living inside her. The demonic half. The part that knew how to fight and kill and survive. "I said don't touch her," Marina snarled, and her voice came out. Wrong, layered like Samael's had been. She moved without thinking, without planning, just letting instinct take over. Her hand shot out, and shadows, actual shadows, solid and sharp, exploded from her palm, catching the first hunter across the face. The angel stumbled back, shocked, and Marina felt a savage satisfaction that definitely didn't come from her human half. The second hunter attacked, blade descending, and Marina caught it. Caught the celestial blade with her bare hand, and it should have burned her, should have destroyed her. But the demonic essence in her soul wrapped around the blade like armor, deflecting the worst of it. "Impossible," the hunter breathed. "Humans can't. You can't." "I'm not human anymore," Marina said. She twisted, using leverage Samael's memories were feeding her through the bond, and threw the hunter into the wall. "You made sure of that when you came here to execute me for choosing to live." The room erupted into chaos. Samael fought 3 hunters. At once, his movements a blur of shadows and claws, his angelic side and demonic side working together for the first time Marina had ever felt through the bond. He was magnificent and terrifying, and she felt his pride in her through their connection, felt his love mixed with fear every time she moved into danger. Marina fought the other 3, and it was insane. She had no training, no real experience, but Samael's combat instincts were flowing through the bond, guiding her hands, teaching her. Body how to move. Duck under that blade. Roll left. Use the shadows as weapons. When you can't block, deflect. When you can't deflect, dodge. But they were still outnumbered, still outmatched. One of the hunters got past Marina's guard, blade slicing across her shoulder, and she felt Samael stagger across the room as the wound appeared on his shoulder too. The mate bond worked both ways. Every injury was shared. "We're not going to win this," Samael said through gritted teeth. He'd pinned one hunter, but 2 more were circling. "Marina, the window has bars." Not for long. His eyes blazed pure red, and he pulled on his demonic power, the kind that alerted every celestial creature within a mile radius, but also could melt metal. The bars on the window began to glow, to warp. "When I say run, you run. Don't wait for me. I'll follow. Like hell I'm leaving you. Marina, we're literally the same person now. If you die, I die. Running doesn't save either of us." She caught another blade on her forearm, felt skin split, felt Samael's matching wound open. "We fight together, or we die together." Through the bond, she felt his capitulation, his acceptance, his desperate love. "Together then," he said. "On 3. We hit them with everything we've got. Might not be enough, but 1, Marina said. 2, Samael continued. The hunters were closing in, 6 blades raised, celestial fire building to an inferno. This was it. Their last stand in a dirty motel room, 3 days into their new life. At least they'd have these 3 days. At least they'd been free. 3. They moved as one. Samael's demonic power and Marina's newly awakened abilities synchronized through the mate bond, amplifying each other. Shadows and fire, darkness and corrupted light, pouring out of them in a wave of pure, desperate survival instinct. The hunters' attack hit them at the same moment their attack hit the hunters. The world went white, then black, then red. Marina felt impacts, felt blades. Finding flesh, felt pain that transcended description, felt Samael's agony echoing hers. amplifying it, creating a feedback loop of suffering. Felt the mate bond strain under the pressure, threatening to snap and take both their souls with it. And then felt something else. Felt the tattoo on her arm pulse one more time, felt Helena's binding activate again, and realized what it was really for. Not just protection, not just a beacon, a lifeline. The binding reached out through the mate bond, wrapped around both their souls, and pulled. Reality twisted, and suddenly Marina and Samael weren't in the motel room anymore. They were somewhere else, somewhere dark and cold and safe, at least temporarily. The last thing Marina heard before consciousness faded was one of the hunters screaming in frustration. "They're gone! Find them! They can't have gone far." But they had. The binding had pulled them somewhere the hunters couldn't follow, couldn't track. Pulled them to the threshold. Azrael's voice said from somewhere nearby. "You made it. Barely." Marina tried to open her eyes, couldn't manage it. Tried to speak, produced only a groan. Every inch of her body was screaming, and through the bond she felt Samael was in the same condition. Worse, maybe. He'd taken more hits, trying to protect her even though protection was meaningless when they shared wounds. "Don't move," Azrael continued. His hands were on her shoulders, gentle but firm. "Either of you. You're not in good shape. The mate bond kept you alive, but just barely. If you'd taken one more hit." "How bad?" Samael's voice, hoarse and pained. "Bad enough that I'm impressed you're conscious. You've got celestial blade wounds that should have killed you. The only reason they didn't is because you're sharing the damage across two bodies instead of one taking the full force. But that also means you're both critically injured instead of one of you being dead and the other being fine. Remind me to send a thank you card to the mate bond," Marina mumbled. She finally managed to crack one eye open. They were in the church again, she realized. The threshold. Lying on the stone floor, Samael beside her, both of them looking like they'd gone through a meat grinder. Samael's hand found hers, fingers interlacing. "You fought," he said, wonder in his voice. "You actually fought them. Where did you learn?" "You. Through the bond. Your memories, your instincts. I just used what you gave me. You were incredible. We almost died. But we didn't." He turned his head to look at her, and even battered and bleeding, even with celestial blade wounds still smoking on his skin, he was smiling. "We survived, Marina. Again. Against 6 trained hunters. Because we fought together. They'll come back," Azrael said grimly. "With more. The celestial orders don't give up once they've marked someone for execution. And now you've embarrassed them, escaped them. They'll send everything they have." "How long do we have?" Marina asked. "Hours. Maybe a day if we're lucky." Azrael moved away, returned with supplies, bandages, bottles of liquid that glowed faintly, herbs that smelled like thunderstorms. "I can heal the worst of it, buy you some time, but you can't stay here. The threshold is protected, but not indefinitely. Eventually they'll breach it. Then we run," Samael said. "Like my father said, we run until we can't run anymore. There might be another option." Azrael's voice was careful, cautious. "There are places, refuges where Nephilim who've broken free of their bindings hide, communities of outcasts. They move frequently, stay hidden, but they exist. If you could find them, we'd have allies," Marina finished. She tried to sit up, gasped as pain lanced through her ribs. "People who understand what we're going through, who might help us hide, or fight, or just survive," Samael said softly. He'd managed to push himself up on one elbow, was looking at her with something profound in his eyes. "That's all we're asking for, isn't it? Just the chance to survive together, to have a life, even if it's a hunted one." Through the bond, Marina felt his question underneath the words. Was it worth it? This pain? This danger? This permanent fugitive status? Would she choose differently if she could go back? She answered through the bond first, pouring her certainty into him. Then she said it aloud, so he could hear it in her voice. I'd choose you again. Every single time. In every possible world. Samael's eyes went gold, pure gold, the angelic side of him surging forward with emotion so strong it made the bond sing. Even knowing what it costs? Especially knowing what it costs. Marina squeezed his hand. Because the cost of not choosing you was death. This way, we get to live. Maybe not the life I imagined, but it's ours. Together. That's worth everything. Azrael was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. The refuge I know of is in Alaska. Remote. Heavily warded. About 40 Nephilim live there. All of them fugitives from celestial or infernal law. They might take you in. Might not. But it's a chance. How do we get there? Samael asked. We can barely walk, let alone travel across the country with hunters tracking us. I can open a doorway. It'll drain me. Might take weeks to recover. But I can do it. One time only. So you need to be sure. Once you go through, you're committed. No coming back here. No reaching out to me. You'll be on your own. Marina looked at Samael. Felt through the bond his exhaustion, his pain, his unwavering determination to keep her safe, even if it meant running forever. Felt also his hope, fragile and precious, that maybe they'd found a path forward, a place where they could stop running, at least for a while. We're sure, she said. Azrael stood, began drawing symbols in the air with his fingers, leaving trails of that galaxy light behind. Then rest while you can. Heal what you're able to. In 6 hours, I'll open the door, and you'll step through into your new life. Whatever it brings. Marina let her eyes close, let herself sink into the bond, into Samael's presence wrapped around her soul. 6 hours until they ran again. 6 hours of peace in a church that had become their sanctuary, their salvation, their only safe harbor in a world that wanted them dead. 6 hours until Alaska, until the refuge, until the next chapter of their impossible story. Through the bond, she felt Samael's thought, soft and certain. Worth it. All of it. You're worth everything. She sent back her own. So are you. And for 6 hours, in the space between hunts, they let themselves just be. Two halves of one whole, broken and healing, terrified and hopeful, together against a world that would never stop coming for them. But together. Always together. That was enough. The refuge in Alaska was nothing like Marina had imagined. She'd pictured something harsh, militaristic, a compound of desperate fugitives huddled against the cold and their pursuers. Instead, when they stepped through Azrael's doorway 6 hours later, bodies still aching but functional, the mate bond humming steadily between them, they emerged into something that looked almost like home. A valley hidden between mountains, warded so heavily the air itself shimmered with protective magic. Cabins scattered among pine trees, smoke rising from chimneys, gardens somehow thriving despite the Alaskan climate. And Nephilim, so many Nephilim, moving through the settlement with the kind of ease that came from safety, from belonging, from not having to look over their shoulders every second. Welcome to Sanctum, said the woman who met them at the valley's edge. She was tall, with wings that flickered between visibility and invisibility, eyes that shifted from violet to silver. I'm Sariel. Azrael sent word you were coming. You must be Samael and Marina. We are, Samael said. His hand was still clasped in Marina's, had been since they stepped through the doorway. Through the bond, she felt his wariness, his disbelief that anywhere could actually be safe. This is real? 40 Nephilim living here without being hunted? 43 now. With you two. Sariel smiled, and it transformed her face from severe to almost gentle. were hunted, just not found. The wards here were created by someone who understood both celestial and infernal magic better than most. As long as we're careful about, who we let in, about maintaining the protections, we stay hidden. She paused. We heard what you did. Breaking a demonic binding. Completing a mate bond with a human. Surviving the division of burdens. That's unprecedented. We didn't have much choice, Marina said. Choice is all we have. Sariel gestured toward the settlement. Come. You'll need housing, healing, and probably food. The council will want to meet you eventually, but that can wait until you're recovered. The cabin they were given was small but sturdy, with a fireplace that had already been lit, a bed that looked impossibly comfortable after days of running, and windows that showed the mountain peaks surrounding the valley. It was more than Marina had had in months, more than she'd dared to hope for since that night in the train station, when her life had ended and begun simultaneously. It's temporary, Sariel said from the doorway. Until the council decides if you can stay permanently. We have to vote. It's complicated, bringing in new people. Every person is a potential security risk. We understand, Samael said. How long do we have? A week, maybe 2. Use the time to heal, to learn about this place, to decide if you even want to stay. Sariel's eyes settled on Marina. It's not an easy life here. We're isolated. We can't leave the valley without careful planning. We're always aware that discovery means death for everyone. But it's a life. That's more than most Nephilim get. She left them alone. Marina sagged against Samael the moment the door closed, exhaustion crashing over her like a wave. Through the bond, she felt his matching weariness, the toll the last week had taken on both of them. We made it, she whispered. We're safe. For now. For now, Samael agreed. He guided her to the bed, and they collapsed onto it together, still fully clothed, too tired to do anything except hold each other. Marina, I need to tell you something. What? I'm terrified. His voice was raw. I'm terrified that this won't last, that they'll find us here, that the council will vote to kick us out, that we'll have to run again, and next time we won't be fast enough, won't be strong enough, that I'll fail to protect you, and you'll die, and I'll die, and it'll all have been for nothing. Marina turned in his arms, pressed her forehead to his. It's not for nothing. Even if it all ends tomorrow, these days we've had, they matter. We chose each other. We freed you from your father. We survived things that should have killed us. That's not nothing. But what if it's not enough? Then it's not enough. But Samael, she pulled back enough to look into his eyes, those eyes that still shifted between red and gold, the physical manifestation of his eternal duality. We're here, together, in a place where other Nephilim have built something that lasts. If they can do it, why can't we? Through the bond, she felt his fear warring with hope, felt the moment hope won, not by much, but enough. Okay, he said softly. Okay, we try. Again. They slept for 14 hours straight, the mate bond synchronizing even their dreams. When Marina woke, the sun was setting outside their window, painting the mountains in shades of orange and gold. Samael was already awake, sitting by the window, watching the settlement with an expression she couldn't quite read. What are you thinking? She asked. That I've never seen Nephilim just living before. Look. At them. He gestured outside, where 2 Nephilim were chopping wood together, laughing about something. Another was hanging laundry. A group of children, half Nephilim, Marina realized with shock, were playing some kind of tag game. They have routines, friendships, families, things I never thought we could have. Things you can have now, Marina said. She moved to sit beside him, and he automatically wrapped an arm around her waist. Things we can build, if they let us stay. Over the next week, they learned about Sanctum, about the Nephilim who'd founded it 30 years ago, who'd died defending it from a celestial raid, but whose wards had held. About the careful screening process for new members, the jobs everyone contributed to: hunting, farming, maintaining the wards, teaching the children. About the rules that kept them safe: no using major powers outside the valley, no contact with the outside world without approval, no bringing anyone here without unanimous council vote. And they learned about the cost. The Nephilim who'd tried to leave and been killed within days. The constant vigilance, the knowledge that one mistake could bring hunters down on all of them. The isolation that gnawed at some. The cabin fever. The yearning for the world they'd left behind. "Do you miss it?" Marina asked Samael on the 5th night. They were walking through the settlement, bundled against the cold, watching stars that shone brighter here than anywhere Marina had ever seen. "You're old. Life? I miss freedom of movement, I guess. Being able to go where I wanted without worrying about exposing 40 other people to danger." He was quiet for a moment. "But that's all I miss. The life I had before you wasn't really a life. It was just existence. Following orders, collecting souls, being my father's tool. This," he gestured around them, "this is actually living. Even though we can't leave, even though we're trapped here, we're not trapped. We're protected. There's a difference." He stopped walking, turned to face her fully. "Marina, I've lived for 347 years. I've been everywhere, done everything, and I've never felt as free as I do right now, in this valley, with you. Because for the first time in my entire existence, I'm choosing my life, instead of having it dictated to me." The council vote came on the 8th day. All 41 Nephilim gathered in the largest cabin, the one they called the hall, and Marina and Samael stood before them while their fate was decided. Sariel spoke first. "We've observed them for a week. They follow rules. They contribute. They haven't used excessive power or drawn attention. And their story, breaking a demonic binding through mate bond formation, is something we've never successfully documented before. If they're willing to share their experience, it could help others in similar situations." Another Nephilim, an older male with wings that looked like they'd been shattered and healed wrong, spoke next. "But they're also the most wanted fugitives in recent history. 6 hunters came for them in Philadelphia. How many will come here if we're discovered? How many of our children will die because we harbored them? We can't live in fear of what ifs," a third voice said. "Every person here is wanted. Every person here is a risk. That's the whole point of Sanctum. We protect each other despite the danger." The debate went on for 2 hours. Marina stood there, feeling Samael's tension. Through the bond, feeling his guilt that he was putting these people at risk just by existing. She squeezed his hand, sent reassurance through their connection. "Whatever happens, we face it together." Finally, Sariel called for the vote. "All in favor of granting Samael and Marina permanent sanctuary?" Hands went up. Marina counted quickly. 26. More than half. Relief flooded through her. "All opposed?" 15 hands. The older Nephilim with the broken wings among them. "Abstentions?" "None." "The motion passes," Sariel said. "Samael and Marina are hereby granted permanent sanctuary status in Sanctum, with all rights and responsibilities therein." She smiled at them. "Welcome home." Home. Marina had to sit down. The word hit her harder than she'd expected, harder than celestial blades or demonic possession, or any of the horrors of the past 3 weeks. Home. A place to stay, to build, to just be. Through the bond, she felt Samael's overwhelming gratitude, his disbelief, his fierce determination to prove worthy of this gift they'd been given. That night, lying in their cabin with the fire crackling and snow beginning to fall outside, Marina traced the tattoo on her arm, the symbols that had saved them, protected them, guided them here. "Thank you, grandmother," she whispered. Thank you for loving Raphael enough to create this, for protecting us even after you were gone." Samael's hand covered hers over the tattoo. "She'd be proud of you, I think. Helena, you did what she couldn't. You saved the Nephilim who loved you, kept him from being destroyed, gave him a future. We gave each other a future," Marina corrected. "I couldn't have done any of this without you, without the bond, without—" She paused, searching for the right words. "Without you choosing me over everything else, over your father's commands, over your own survival instincts, over centuries of conditioning that said you didn't deserve choice. You made me believe choice was possible." His eyes were pure gold in the firelight, the demonic red completely absent for the first time since she'd met him. "You made me believe I could be more than what I was created to be. That's everything, Marina." She kissed him then, soft and deep, pouring into it everything she felt through the bond and more. Love, gratitude, hope, relief, joy, the knowledge that they'd survived the impossible and built something real from the ashes. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Samael rested his forehead against hers. "So what now?" he asked. "Now we live," Marina said simply. "We learn how to be part of a community. We help maintain the wards. We teach others about what we learned, about breaking bindings, about mate bonds, about survival. We plant a garden in the spring. We make friends. We have quiet days and hard days and ordinary days. We just live together, always together." She smiled. "That's not negotiable. You're stuck with me for the next 1,000 years. Remember? Best deal I ever made." He pulled her closer, and through the bond she felt his peace, his contentment, his absolute certainty that this small cabin in a hidden valley, this fugitive life, this permanent exile from the world they'd known, was exactly where he wanted to be. Outside, the snow fell heavier, blanketing the valley in white. Inside, the fire burned warm, and two souls that had been torn apart and recombined held each other in the darkness, no longer running, no longer hunted, at least for tonight. They were marked. They were wanted. They were exiled from both heaven and hell. They would never be truly safe, never be able to let their guard down completely, never stop being aware that discovery meant death for them and everyone who'd sheltered them. But they were alive. They were together. They were free in the only way that mattered, free to choose each other every day, for as long as they had, and in a world that had tried everything to keep them apart, to destroy them, to erase them from existence. That was victory enough. Marina fell asleep wrapped in Samael's arms, the mate bond singing between them, a constant reminder that she was no longer alone, would never be alone again. That half her soul lived in him, and half his soul lived in her, and that made them stronger than anything that would come for them. In the morning, they would begin their new life, would learn the routines of sanctum, meet their neighbors, figure out how to contribute to this community that had given them sanctuary. But tonight they simply existed. Two impossible people who'd survived an impossible situation, who'd chosen love over law, freedom over safety, each other over everything else the world had offered. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers, new reasons to run. But they would face them together, always together. And that was enough. What would you sacrifice for love? What would you give up if the person who held your heart was also the one sent to end your life? Marina and Samael's story forces us to confront the most terrifying question of all. Is freedom worth the cost when it means becoming permanent fugitives, hunted by forces beyond comprehension, never knowing true safety again? They chose each other over everything, over redemption, over peace, over the normal lives they could never have. They split their souls, broke unbreakable laws, and became something the world had never seen before. Not human, not fully supernatural. Just two halves of an impossible whole, bound together by a love so fierce it rewrote the rules of existence itself. Their father's love nearly destroyed Marina. Samael's father tried to enslave him forever, but in the end, it was their choice to love each other that became their salvation and their curse. They're marked now, exiled, watching the stars from a hidden valley while knowing that discovery means death for everyone who sheltered them. Some might call that a tragedy, but they call it a life. Because what is freedom really? If not the power to choose who you become, even when every force in the universe is trying to decide for you? What is love, if not the willingness to face an eternity of running, as long as you're running together? Their story doesn't have a perfect ending. It has a real one. Messy, dangerous, beautiful, and entirely their own. So I ask you, would you make the same choice? Would you trade safety for freedom, acceptance for truth, a peaceful death for a hunted life, if it meant truly living for the first time? If this story moved you, made you question what you'd sacrifice for the people you love, then share it with someone who needs to hear it. Hit that like button if you believe love is worth fighting impossible battles for. And follow this channel, because stories like Marina and Samael's, stories about choosing each other when the world demands you choose survival, are exactly what we need to remember. That sometimes the bravest thing we can do is love someone anyway, even when everything says we shouldn't, even when it costs everything, especially then.